You are listening to the Savage FINcast, episode 23, Heroes, Hoodlums, and Haunts.
Chicago. A criminal mastermind called Overlord held our city in his terrifying grip. Ordinary cops were losing the battle against Overlord's super freaks and mutants. Then, a miracle happened. When I found him, he had no memory of his past. I helped him find an identity and a life. Now we have a fighting chance. Now we have the dragon.
This is the Savage FINcast, the show lost at sea without a compass. I am Jim Purcell, and I'm joined here today with my co-host, Craig Olson. This episode is going to be a little bit different than usual. We are joined here today with the talented Scott James. So rather than our usual review of the latest issue, we will be talking with him. So, take it away, Craig.
So, Scott James is a professional artist who by now should be a household name for any rabid Savage Dragon fan. Scott probably comes in third, only behind Frank Fosco and Mark Englert, in having the most amount of penciled artwork appear in dragon-related backup stories of Savage Dragon. Scott's Savage Dragon-related work includes an Alex Wild backup in issue 132, a second Alex backup in issue 143, a Hostess Pie spoof ad in issue 188, the recent Deadly Duo backup in 190, and the current Max Damage backup story in this month's issue, which we'll be discussing as the entire issue later on in this episode. Scott also has had a pinup in Savage Dragon way back in issue 66. In addition, Scott's also penciled issues of Marcosia's comic Starship Troopers series. He's provided artwork for an original graphic novel titled The Case Files of Harlan Falk, due out, I think, in December. And that's also from Marcosia, and he's also been working on a creator-owned project titled Mob Files, which we'll find out more about. So welcome to the FINcast, Scott, and hopefully I didn't screw anything up, and you can correct me if I messed anything up in that intro.
No. Thank you. And thank you guys for having me. I enjoy your FINcast every month, so again,
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks again.
And I did get the Fin wrong in issue 66 pinup.
Tisk,
By the way.
tisk.
Yeah,
What?
wretchedly wrong.
That was what, 1999 issue 66 or somewhere around there?
Yeah, I had met Erik at the Motor City Comic-Con, and he liked my stuff back then, and he said, can I get you to do a pinup? I'm like, yeah, sure. And I had done that, and the original drawing had Dragon with a cigar in his mouth, and he didn't like the cigar in Dragon's mouth because Dragon didn't smoke, and I was like, okay. And I took the cigar out, took the cigar out and sent it off to him, and that was that. And then later on, looking at it, going, oh my God, I got the Fin terribly wrong.
Yeah, that's the thing about Erik. Erik is very anti-smoking. Nobody smokes in his comic.
Very true.
Yeah,
And I guess I was looking at it as, back he did a cover with when Malcolm was born. He had Dragon smoking a cigar on the cover. So I was like,
yeah,
oh,
that's right.
He smokes a cigar every so often.
Right.
So, but,
I got nixed, huh?
Yeah, hey, it happens.
That's pretty cool, though. I mean, where were you around 1999? Had you done any professional work, or were you kind of just looking for work?
I was doing a lot of, I've done a lot of gaming and fantasy work. That's where my mainstay is, or my wheelhouse. I've done a lot of stuff for Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering,
Really?
RPG, CCG, that kind of stuff. But I've always had a love for comics, and I wanted to transition into comics, and met Erik at the Motor City show, and that's kind of where it went from there.
And that's pretty awesome too, because I mean, you think back around issue 66 and beforehand, most of the guys that were getting pinups in Savage Dragon were kind of established, real popular artists. You're getting like the Jay Lees or whoever. You know what I mean? It was like you're getting real established popular comic book artists, and it's pretty neat to get, to have Erik be like, hey, I wanna get a piece of your work as a pinup in the comic.
Yeah, I thought it was cool because I came late to the game in regards to Erik's work. It wasn't until a buddy of mine handed me the trade paperback of the first collected 4 issues, or was it 4 issues?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Series.
Yeah, 3.
It was 3, and
it turned to 4 when he made it like the Dragon kind of single issues because he added a few more pages in.
Pages, exactly. Well, I was given for free the graphic novel, and I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of cool. I dig this. So subsequently, I've gone back, and it's like Spider-Man, anything he did Spider-Man, or anything he's done artwork wise, be it writing and artwork or artwork, I've picked up. So
that's pretty awesome. I was gonna say that your art style, I don't know if it's evolved, but it feels like it's got a lot of kind of Erik Larsen influence, or I don't know, maybe Simonson or something to that effect. I mean, I look at it, and I was talking to Jim before the show, and it's uncanny to me that it looks very similar to Mark Englert's art, and we know Mark Englert from the guy that did the Mighty Man serial or God War or Kirkman's Capes, but your styles are very, very similar. Like you've kind of got the same influences, and I don't know if you can enlighten us on that, what your influences are and where you see some of your art coming, where that's coming from. Did it change a lot after you were a Dragon fan and you get a lot more Larsen influence, or do you just draw in a different style depending on what you're drawing, or
a little bit of both, or all the above? When I do gaming artwork, it tends to be a little bit more photorealistic, and I just found that Erik's sandbox, if you will, lends itself to be free and cartoony, a little bit more cartoony and expressive, and you're able to over exaggerate things. And I was never a big Kirby guy. I was more of an Alex Toth fan. Big fan of Toth. Still am a huge fan of Toth. But I saw a way that Kirby and Toth, and I liked how Erik, where Kirby would draw some things that are really wonky. You look at figures going, wait, there's muscles where there's no this is kind of weird looking,
right?
But it looks cool.
Yeah.
Erik made it look cool and feasible.
Right.
And the fist in the foreground, the extreme foreshortening. Where Toth was more of the straight-laced kind of, when it's an action scene, there's action, but it's not over the top, where Kirby is over the top. I feel, anyway, that Erik brought some of that, grounded it more in realism, but still had that Kirby flair.
Yes, I agree. And I see a lot. I think your style lends a lot to that too. And I haven't seen your Dungeons and Dragons type work or your other kind of production type work, but your comic work, it's a good fit for a Savage Dragon type book. And I really enjoy your backups because it's a good fit. Sometimes you get some backup artists or some guys that work in Erik's sandbox, and it doesn't fit, and it takes you out of it a little bit, but.
Well, and I look at it as almost like Toth with designing a model sheet. Erik's created these models,
right?
And you stay to these models, so it's hard. I feel it'd be hard for like a Travis Cherish to go in and try to draw a Savage Dragon book.
Because, you get the guys that give Dragon the same proportion, like regular proportions, and it's like he has to have that massive upper body torso and the skinny legs and
a fin.
Yes, it has to be right. Damn it.
Yeah, I think that is the mark of a good character design, though. When it goes off model, it just feels so wrong.
Well, and it's especially for Savage Dragon when you have the same artist drawing it for 200 issues, and that's what you're looking for. Little changes here and there are nice, just to get another perspective, but you have to have the overall model kind of on, and when you start giving Dragon tree trunk legs or something like that, it pulls you out of it a little bit, and it doesn't feel like the real character, the real Savage Dragon.
I agree 100%. You got to stay true to the model, and Erik's style is so distinct, and his characters are so not only are they diverse, but you look at them and it's, how do you draw this any other way than how he's drawn it? So
right.
You're ultimately influenced by how he's drawn it, because you want to stay true to the character,
right.
And that's how I feel about it. So when I'm playing in Erik's sandbox, I guess I appreciate him letting me play with his toys in his sandbox, and I want to be respectful.
Yeah, right. I get that. So let's talk about the first time you actually really got a full backup in Savage Dragon. So it was issue 132, which was, I think I have it down as like September 2007 was when it was published. So it's about 8 years after your pinup is your first pinup. How did that come about? I
emailed Erik, and because I had seen that he was doing backups, and I was like, Erik, you may remember me from issue 66. I did the pinup. I got the fin wrong. I think I even put that in the email, and I'm like, hey, I got the fin wrong. What would it take for me to do a backup for you? And he emailed me back and said, well, what character do you want to do? Well, at that time, Francesco was doing the
She-Dragon
everywhere. So, I mean, no offense, but She-Dragon, Francesco's DNA was all over She-Dragon. I didn't want to even try to follow him on She-Dragon.
Right.
And though she was a popular character, my favorite female character at the time, and still kind of is Alex.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I'd like to do an Alex backup. And he goes, okay. And I waited a couple weeks. It hadn't heard anything email-wise. And I had done a pinup of Alex in the meantime, of her sitting on the edge of the bed with the handcuffs and her,
Yeah, the real, kind of real sexual kind of pose.
A little saucy.
Racy, yeah.
You see the silhouette of Dragon on the wall. And I sent him that, and I had sent him an idea for a backup story. And I had called it Women's Intuition. And I did little thumbnails of, how, and it was going to be Alex was realizing that Dragon was different. And she was sitting down and having a beer with Frank in a bar, and was telling Frank all these instances where Dragon didn't seem like Dragon.
Right. And just for the listener, this backup story ties in with, what you're talking about, something that tied in with Savage Dragon 99, where, our Dragon's mind at this point is gone over to the Savage world, and to replace Dragon, Dark Lord put in the Dark World Dragon to live in the Image universe.
Right.
Exactly.
I'm sure I've just confused everybody, but that's what we're talking about. So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so, she's sitting there telling Frank all this stuff because, for me, there's something about using characters that are kind of obscure. I like that.
Yeah.
I dig Frank. I dug Alex. And, so I did a little thumbnail, and I kind of even did a little script. And he goes, you know what? I don't hate this. But what if we use that pinup that you did as a splash page Dragon and Alex have sex. Dragon's brooding, and he's thinking about everything about Dark World, Universo. Oh God, what's his name? Mother Mayhem and Universo.
Yep.
And the destruction of the world and all of that. And I had originally in my thumbnails had a parallel page. The last page was a parallel of 99, where and it basically I kept the same layout,
right.
where it ended, and he gave that to me. He goes, yeah, I love that splash, or that pinup. We'll make that a splash page, and we'll fit the rest of this in. Have at it. It was written very Marvel method, where it was like literally a paragraph. I got the 6 pages in a paragraph, and it was like, okay.
And so you did all your own layouts and stuff, like,
yeah,
just let you run with it. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was really cool, and there was, obviously edits along the way. That silhouette sequence at the bottom, it originally was a panel of them in coitus, because there was that shot where Dragon is behind Alex at one time. There's that right on top of Dragon at one time. So I was like, okay, well, let me
do it. I can do it.
Yeah, well, at that time Eric's like, oh, let's keep it a little bit more on the down low, and I'm like, all right, cool. So then
I still get the picture though.
Yeah, and then I was like, how am I going to do this and make it kind of cool? So I did the silhouettes, but my little gimmick was I put in the alarm clock with the changing times, I think starting at 7 something, 8 something, 9 something, and then like 9:01, it was over. So,
but I think this backup is one of the all-time greats in Savage Dragon, because it ties into, like, gives you an explanation of what was going on before issue 99. It's got a lot of great characters, and it's got a lot of, like, little brief appearances of cool characters.
Yeah, you get to draw a lot of neat characters in this, between Dragon and Alex, of course, and then you got Dark Lord, and you drew Mother Mayhem and Universo.
That one page where it's got, like, it's the flashback, and it's got kind of Dragon in the middle, like you were saying, Jim, the Dark Lord and Universo. It's such a cool page. I love the last panel of that page, where it's just like the brooding dragon kind of thinking about Earth exploding, and it's just such a neat panel.
Well, I think I think that might be Dark World. I might think he might be.
Oh, Dark World, yeah.
Might be thinking about his home.
Yeah.
Well, and I wasn't given that. That's something I added. I was like, okay, well, he's brooding about the coming end, and the end of the world. And, I looked at it as it's either he's thinking of the impending doom or what has happened in the past.
Right.
And that, history might repeat itself.
Well, that's kind of how I read it.
Yeah. And if you look at this page again for the listener, it's Savage Dragon 132, the backup in it, the very last backup. If you look at, like, the second page, or you get that first page, which is the splash of Alex, and the second page, the one where you first see Dragon, he just looks like your Dragon, the Dragon we know. He's kind of he's looks cool and collected. He's got a smile on his face. He's just like Dragon.
He's boxers too.
Yeah. And then as you go on through the tale, he just gets so brooding, and he just looks kind of like a villain. He's got these brooding looks, and even when there's a picture of when he's getting, like, a peck on the cheek from Alex, and he's got this grin, and it just still kind of looks evil.
Yeah, it's more sly than.
Yeah, it's just really cool storytelling. I really enjoy this.
Look
backup.
what I'm pulling off here.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, it ties in with 99 of that last page, and it's a neat backup.
Well, and I actually did a tribute, because that's the year that Toth died.
Really?
And you have him hanging up on the wall.
And I actually talked to the Toth family and asked permission to put Alex's logo.
Oh, really?
as an homage and as a respect to, because Alex Toth and I were pen pals for the last 3 years of his life.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So it was, it was my tip of the hat,
That's awesome. Because at first I noticed he had I think it's Dave Matthews Band or something on the wall.
I'm a huge DMB fan.
Elvis Costello maybe or something. I think I see.
I love Elvis Costello, Morphine. Yeah.
So you did all the coloring, right, on this tail as well,
yes,
colors and everything. So you just threw your favorites on the wall and.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah, Dave Matthews is something that I'm always listening to when I'm doing artwork. So.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah. That, like I said, it's a great little backup. And it's a real cool one to get right out the gate. So I'm sure Erik saw that and really enjoyed your layouts on that and your ideas. It sounds like you got, you listen to some of these people that do backups or something, and it seems like Erik has a little more tight control. I know with She-Dragon, I think Erik started by doing all the layouts for Francesco and stuff like that. And
that's something that I asked him. I was like, because, I had seen that he had done the layouts, and I was like, now, are you laying this out, or am I? What? He goes, oh, have at it,
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, So he saw that first page, which is the splash, and the rest was history. Like I said, I'd send him the pages as they came out, and like I said, the second page where he had me edit out the coitus and put in and I ended up, he said, be more subtle. And that's when the alarm clock and the silhouettes.
Which I think makes an overall kind of better story. I think that's, and that's part of Erik too, just kind of realizing what works and what doesn't. But I think actually just kind of showing the silhouettes with, it got you thinking on how to show less but more,
Well, and that's what Toth has always said is, less is more. I believe he said, think more and draw less, and then what you draw the hell out of.
That's
so, cool. I mean, it was a good lesson because it doesn't always have to be in your face, and you don't always have to shout. Sometimes those little subtle, quieter, storytelling or pacing tells a story better than, having it, in your face,
right,
so to speak.
So let's talk about your next backup then, issue 143. It's called Getting Ugly, which was the backup, and again, it's another kind of Alex-centric tale, in another kind of noir style. So it's her kind of narrating the tale. How did this one come about? Was this another one where you asked Erik and
Yep. I was like, give me more. I want more Alex Wild. I emailed him, and then he came up with Getting Ugly, and the actual splash page I laid out, I think, once or twice, and he didn't like either one of the layouts, and he just did a quick little scribble and said, this is what I'm thinking.
So the first page
with the readout.
The first
for
page,
listeners.
Yeah, the first page is, Red Giant, crashing through the wall, and Alex is standing there. I had shot over Alex's shoulder like she had the revolver, her service revolver, and you were looking down, like looking past her ear from behind her, and you were seeing all that. Well, Erik wanted her full figure from behind, and he ended up doing, like I said, a quick little scribble, and I was real quick layout, and I was like, okay, got what you mean.
Yeah.
And he even put, I think, in an email, there's times that I have a vision in my head, and he goes, sometimes it's just easier for me to do a little doodle, and then you get what I mean. And that was, he gave me that, and then I laid out the rest. And again, it was the Marvel method, where it was literally a paragraph, or a couple sentences for each page.
Right, right.
And that's what came out, and it was fun drawing Bud Ugly.
Yeah, he's a classic villain. I mean,
It kills me he's dead.
I know, because he always appears like in random places, and he's up there with like he's not that level villain like a Mako or Cutthroat or anything, but he's always like around. He's always featured.
One of my favorites is when he's working in the diner where Dragon's having dinner with, I forget her name. She's the assistant director when he's
Right.
doing the Schick or the Schick commercial. But he's like, the cook's like, isn't that your nemesis? And he takes the stove and crushes it over Dragon, and he's like, you're gonna pay for this. I think $2 is what I paid for the shirt. It just, he's always been there, and he's always been a cool character. Now he's gone.
Yeah, I know.
I'm glad that I was able to draw him.
Did you get to pick the villain, or did Erik
picked
who the villain was?
Erik picked all the characters in that one except for Alex. I was like, give me another Alex story.
Well, and this tale is another great, I think is a really well written tale on Erik's behalf, because it gives you that other side again. And it kind of harkens back to like the early Savage Dragon issues where like now you're putting in Alex's place and you realize like how dangerous the Vicious Circle goons are, because by this time, Dragon's faced the Vicious Circle so many times, and he's beaten the piss out of Bud Ugly, and Bud Ugly kind of comes off as a buffoon. Even though he's a super strong guy, to Dragon, he's kind of just like a run-of-the-mill villain. But when you think of it in terms of like the Chicago police force and they have to deal with these guys, I mean, you're kind of scared for Alex in this, in this little backup, because she's way out overpowered,
Right, she's got that one little bit where she's wishing she had the battle tank armor or the power gloves or something.
Right, yeah. And she actually shoots him and it does nothing,
It bounces off the back of his head, and then he crushes and collapses part of the building, and she's injured. And I originally had tears coming down her cheeks in that on one of the pages when she's talking when she's on the phone talking to Angel. And Erik's like, come on, dude. She's manning up. She's a cop. She's not going to be crying. So I ended up having to take out the tears, which, I was like, cool. Hey, excellent. She's a tough chick.
Yeah, but it still comes across as she's scared shitless, but she's not going to cry. It's not
she's
her
not going to
character.
cry. Exactly. And, it was one of those things where Erik was like, yeah, you know what? She's tougher. She's tougher than that.
Right.
She's just Chicago cop here. So
I wanted to say you did the coloring on this as well, right?
Yeah.
Because I want to say you did some really interesting things with texturing on this one.
I got better from the between 132 and this one. I'd grown accustomed doing more and more coloring, so there was a nice gap in between. I think like a 10-issue, 12-issue gap between the two. So there was
could be more than that, because some of the issues might have been coming out infrequently. So
yeah. Well, I'm guessing I'm going numerically.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well, the first one, 132, I waited almost a year for my backup to
actually appear.
Yeah, because you signed it like 2006, and I think it wasn't published till like 2007.
Yeah, and that's when Erik was, I think, working as publisher, and there was that gap where there was almost a year between, issues.
Yeah.
For that real long time, and I was like, oh, and then when it came out, I was like, I could do way better than this, Yeah. So.
But like Jim was saying, the texturing, it comes across pretty cool. I mean, I'm guessing if I remember, this building's like in the danger zone or whatever, so it's like a rundown, and you got the real grimy kind of textures on the walls and stuff. It looks neat.
I think I liked the coloring a lot more than what Nikos was doing at the time. I think that stuck with me, is that the backup, the coloring wise, I enjoyed it a lot more.
Oh, well, thank you. And that sang a lot because I love Nikos's work.
Well, I like Nikos now, but back when he was first starting out, I thought it was a little bit odd.
It might have just taken it was definitely a little bit different than what we were used to for years. There was a lot of those like flares and
a lot of
stuff like that, and
dodge tool.
Yeah.
Well, it was definitely in your face, like poppy.
Right.
But the same thing has been said about my colors as well. Is that it's a little too poppy. So, and when I did that, I had colored it, and that was, I think, right before when I was doing that issue. It was right after Nikos had started, color as the colorist.
Right.
Because Erik had gone through he was looking for a colorist.
Yeah. Yep.
So, I think I was in the midst of coloring it, and he had picked Nikos, and I was like, I think it was the issue before when Nikos debuted, and I was like, oh, this guy's doing exactly or similar to what I'm doing,
Yeah, I think, was it like the Godland issue or something where Nikos kind of...
I think so.
Yeah.
I like that issue. Nikos was weird, too, because it seemed like he was just kind of experimenting as it went along. So he didn't come out with like a style that kind of stuck, and he would play around with different things. And I'm wondering if that was kind of Erik just kind of being like, try this or try this. But I think it just took him a little while to settle in. And but I enjoy his stuff. I mean, there was hit or miss issues, but
yeah,
overall,
I mean, like I said, I'm a fan of his now. I think he's found a nice middle ground from what he was doing early on. Well, I was just saying that in comparison, I actually feel that this story is actually a little bit darker in coloring, at least compared to what Nikos was doing at the time. So you say that people say your colors are like really bright. You do a lot of things with color.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that just the texturing you do with the dilapidated buildings just kind of, I don't know, it gives it a good contrast, I think.
Yeah, it fits for that story.
Thanks. Even the sun shines on a dog's ass some days, I guess.
So I'm just going to roll through the stuff that you've done in Savage Dragon. I know you've done some other stuff, and we'll skip to that, and we can talk about that a little later. But let's just go through some of the other things in Dragons. There's some real interesting stuff. You did the Toastus ad in skipping to 188, which was just around the corner. We just had 188.
Yeah, it was a bit of a gap since your last time you were in. What did you have going on during that time?
What, in between
143 and 180?
I was doing a lot of gaming.
Yeah, you said you did a lot of gaming-related artwork.
I was working on Harlan Falk as well. So, Case Files of Harlan Falk, I was working on penciling, inking, and coloring that. That's pretty much what I'd been doing in that time. Just a boatload of gaming work.
Yeah.
And
question: Did you do your gaming work under a pseudonym? Because I'm trying to look up your Magic card work, and I'm not having any luck.
It was a subsequent card. I did. Did stuff for Deadlands, Burning Sands.
Oh, okay.
They were subsequent card series based off of the Magic.
Gotcha. They're all collectible card games.
Yeah. So, I did that. I did a couple of things, but this was earlier before I did stuff for Erik and Savage Dragon. But I did a lot of stuff for Shadowrun, BattleTech.
Oh, that's cool. I know all of those things.
This is all Greek to me, but I'll...
Yeah. Shadowrun, BattleTech, Mutants and Masterminds, a lot of work for Mutants and Masterminds, which is basically a superhero...
Role-playing game.
Game.
I own a copy. I should probably pull it out.
So, I've done some covers for them. I've done tons of interiors for that. Did a lot of stuff for L5R, for those of you who don't know, Legends of Five Rings, which was samurai oriented. role-playing game. I did collectible card games for L5R as well. And it just,
Yeah, it sounds like you've kept busy in the fantasy art department.
Yeah, and that's
sort of.
I'm trying to transition it more so into comics because that's where my passion is.
Right.
Cool.
So,
and I do want to talk more about the case files of Harlan and Falk after we talk some of the Savage Dragon stuff, because that seems like a real interesting book. But I did want to get through some of this stuff. I know we're kind of limited on time. Your Toastus ad in issue 188. I remember seeing on your blog a little slight different, a variation on that. And I know you said, like on your blog, you said, oh, this ad's not going to see print in Savage Dragon because the gag's too obvious. But yeah, we did see it in 188. What changed there? I know it was originally called like Hair Pie or something, which is hilarious.
Yes, it was called Hair Pie Diplomacy. Because I like the play on words. And there is such thing as a hair pie. And hence the rabbit holding the pie.
Right.
I just thought it was funny. Nothing brings bipartisan politics to Washington like a good hair pie. And that's, I sent it to Erik, and Erik was, he was like, and God bless Adam Pruitt, because if it wasn't for Adam, pushing the issue, if we need to change or add more dialogue, or we could make it more heated debate, not thinking that it had to do with the euphemism for vagina, that as Erik so elegantly put it in an email. The problem I have is not the art or anything else except for the euphemism for vagina. Hair pie is I'm like, okay.
That's easy.
So the toasty guy was a rabbit before?
Yes, he was. It was a rabbit with a chef's hat, holding the pie, and with a shit-eating grin on his face.
Gotcha.
And you can see that on Scott's blog. Scott, can you give the address to your blog?
Yeah, Scott James Art at blogspot.com.
Yeah, so you can see that original and compare to what was printed.
Yeah, so I thought it was dead in the water, but Adam kept it alive, and he goes, well, what if we renamed it? What if you renamed it? What if you renamed? So we came up with Toastus, and then I redid the logo of the toast guy holding the pie, and I was like, yeah, it works. It's to me, it wasn't as funny,
right?
But
I think Hostess was going out of business about that time. So
they were. They were. Well, and at first Adam was like, well, what if we did the home run pie? Well, home run pie went out of business, I guess,
right
before.
Yeah.
So that was dead in the water. So we manufactured our own company called Toastus. So, which I didn't even think about it until I heard on your podcast that it reminded you of the toast guy from
Powdered Toast Man.
Oh, yeah. Powdered Toast Man, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, yeah, I could see that.
And so that brings us now. So you did 188, and now you're in issue 190, and now the new issue 191. So
seem to be on a bit of a roll.
Yeah. So
and I also colored Frank's stuff in
that's right.
His Zeke story.
The Zeke story. Yeah, that's right. Which I know we praised the coloring on that, because I remember talking about that, the lighting of like the cars and stuff when he's smashing the cars. We enjoyed the coloring on that.
Oh, thanks.
So you've been contributing a lot in the past few months or few years. I don't know how long it's actually taken these things to see the light of day, but I hate to keep asking you this, but how did these, like, was a Deadly Duo and Max Damage kind of a package deal, or was one done in the can and then Erik came back and said, you want to do Max Damage? Or I think Max Damage was written by Gavin, so was that Gavin approaching you?
Well, yeah, Gavin and I had been talking for a couple months.
And this is Gavin Higginbotham, the editor of Savage Dragon, for the listeners, who's been writing some of the backups.
And all-knowing Gavin, you know. Yeah, he and I had been talking, you know, back and forth, email or through Facebook, and we were going to do a backup, and we had talked about doing a multiple story backup at one point, and it never came to be. Erik had issues, wanted things tweaked or whatnot. And at that same time, he had written the Zeke backup, which Erik was like, yeah, you've given the green light to. Well, he ended up giving it to Frank to do.
Gotcha.
And he had asked me if I wanted to, if I would be interested in coloring it. And I said, well, yeah, man, anything to be a part of, you know, Dragon, you know,
Right.
though I prefer drawing. Well, at the same time, he had gotten the green light for the max damage backup. So I had finished, I had a shoulder injury at that time. So I'd been working on my drawing arm. So I'd been working coloring. And then afterwards, I started penciling the max damage. Well, then my family and I went on vacation to Florida, and I brought down the max damage to work on. And while down in Florida, Erik emailed me about 190 and wanting me to be a part, you know, do the Kill Cat and Deadly Duo backup in 190. And I was like, yeah, sure. And so
he called telling you about his format experimentation? What he wanted to do?
Yeah, and that was definitely, you know, I was like, oh, anytime Erik is playing and trying to do really cool things like that, I thought it was a really cool concept and idea. And I was just happy that he asked me to be a part of it, you know, and I was like, yeah, not a problem. So he sent me the story. I was down in Florida sitting poolside trying to lay it out. And this was another instance where I had done the first panel layout or the splash page, because the way I laid out my pages, I had done them for the
full size
digest. I did it for
okay.
the digest. I laid it out digest wise, not
right. So you did digest first?
Well, considering they were going to be the same, I had just did it digest wise so I could see how the two pages would look juxtaposed, or, you know,
right.
side by side. And Erik goes, well, why are you doing it that way? And I explained. He goes, oh, that makes sense. So, but he didn't like my original splash page, because I had the villain in there being knocked. You know, he was in the foreground. I had Kill Cat, and it was similar, but it was Kill Cat, and I had more of an establishing shot showing the location, and the villain was coming out more towards you. You saw the whole villain. So, you know, I had done a couple different takes on it, and he was like, you know, the villain's not the main part of this.
Right.
You know, let's, you know.
Put his head outside the panel.
And he didn't even say that. He said, as soon as he put, oh, the villain's not the main person, you know, focus more on Kill Cat and Kid Avenger. And I'm like, okay. I go, I bet he wants just like he's done before in the past, where you got the legs or the legs hand or something, and the rest of the characters off panel. So I started to lay that out, and as soon as I'm starting to lay it out, and I just kind of roughed it in, I get an email, and Erik had done another scribble, you know, loose layouts, and it was damn near exactly to what I had
Gotcha. Yeah.
just done. And I was like, damn, he beat me to the punch.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying too, because it'd be nicer to be like, hey, look, I know what you want.
You know, I figured it out myself.
Yeah, right.
You know, and I emailed Erik back. I go, geez, I just done something very similar. So, you know, he had then, that was the layout that I went from for the first panel, or the the splash page, depending on which format you're looking at, with 190.
And so in the villain, that's your creation, the Ramrod guy?
Yeah. So
That's pretty cool.
it was a character I created back in college. So it was like one of those, it's a throwaway bad guy. Do you mind if I throw in one of my guys? There was another character I was going to throw in there, and then I was like, yeah, I'm going to save him.
Yeah.
So
And that's cool that Erik was cool with it. Now you got your like little kind of little piece in Savage Dragon. You know what I mean? Your creator-owned guys gracing the pages of Savage Dragon.
yeah, along the sides of, along the lines of, Lobster Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Or not Lobster Johnson, but what's it?
Jimbo the Mighty Lobster.
Yeah.
Oh, Jimbo the Mighty Lobster. Yes.
Lobster Johnson is Mignola's Hellboy.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm confusing the two. Yes, but Jimbo the Mighty Lobster.
Gotcha. I knew what you meant.
We
Thank
all
you.
did.
Well, the art in this it's done a little bit different, right? Is this all just pencils?
Yeah, it looks
Is
like
there any-
pencils.
Yeah, they were just pencils that I manipulated in Photoshop to get them a little bit darker, and
Then you use the color to really put it in the detail, right?
yeah, and then I also colored over the pencil line in areas, and it added texture that way. That's
love
kind
the
of the way that I'd done Harlan Falk, the case files of Harlan Falk. So it was like, okay, because I feel my redundancy becomes repetitive when I ink, because I pencil
So tight.
quite tight. Yeah.
yeah.
So it's like, okay, literally, I'm a tracer at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not unusual. I see a lot of artists do that these days.
Well,
Well-
especially since you're doing your own stuff.
Well, yeah, if I wasn't coloring it, and with issue 191, I had somebody else ink my stuff, and there's always things that I would do differently if I was inking myself.
Right.
So it's killing, I guess, two birds with one stone. I get to be, this is how I want to represent myself, so to speak.
Right.
Line work wise. So
Yeah, and it came out great. It looks good.
thanks. It was, I think that if it was sandwiched in between the killer Frank Fosco and the killer Erik Larsen, with all the action, and you had the little, it would have been a happy sandwich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
yeah.
I mentioned in the FINcast that this wasn't my favorite of the issue, but you did have a hard act to follow. And it wasn't.
I
And it
did-
wasn't the art. I thought the art was great. It's just I felt Eric's story
It's-
was
it's
a
a-
little thin.
Well, it's a kill cat kind of goof story, and it's hard. I think I forget who we were talking about, if it was Adam or something
Adam
on.
Pruitt said it,
yeah.
when you're dealing with talking heads and
Yes. Yeah.
trying to make that as interesting, and that's where I felt like I failed Erik. That I was like, oh, I didn't make it as interesting as maybe I could have done something different to make it.
No, it's just it reminded me. It's the same kind of thing, kind of like what was going on in Eric's like 24-hour comic, if you remember the Herculean. It's
Yeah.
kind of like you just have a running gag with basically people talking, and you try to make it a superhero comic while having action in the background.
Right.
And it's a hard thing to pull off, and I don't think that you failed in terms of that. I think it worked. I just I went more for like the action of the Frank Fosco kind of thing, but I don't think anyone could do this much better than what you did. It's not in terms of you failed. It wasn't exciting enough. It was meant to be a kind of a gag strip, and I think it came out great.
Well, I appreciate that, but the most action I had was in the first panel, or the
Exactly.
first page, where Ramrod's getting knocked out, and then it's
It's just-
Still Cat trying to flirting with a girl and trying to close the deal, and then realizing that he's ill-equipped and unprepared to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the whole gist was to get out, like, Kill Cat's just not used to somebody not rejecting him. Someone's actually falling in love with him, and he doesn't know how to handle it.
Yeah, he's succumbing to the pressure. And I couldn't believe the line. Kill Cat, I want you in me. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah. I read that too, and it was like, wow.
So does Erik do the dialogue, or do you do the dialogue?
Erik did the dialogue. I just did the drawing. He basically said the girl's coming on to Kill Cat hard. He's sweating bullets. Once he realizes that she's interested,
right, that
he's sweating bullets and doesn't know what to do. And Kid Avenger in the background has been asking, for help. And as he's, trying to lift this, big villain up, he drops him on her, and then she said, I think in the description it simply said she says something about wanting Kill Cat, and as she's unconscious or going out, becoming unconscious, and Kill Cat is like, kid, can't we? Here, maybe I should help you. Can't we move a little? Can't we move faster?
Right.
So he could get back to her.
So you drew all the art, and then you passed it on to Erik, who did all the lettering after.
Yeah.
So did you see it in its final form before or after print?
I saw it before because Adam had sent it to me.
Digital files, yeah.
Digital files, so I could, because I had no idea what was going to be written.
Right.
I knew the premise of the story, but I didn't know what the dialogue was.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, yeah, I mean, it was cool to see. It was, I was like, wow. I always get excited because it's something to always see it lettered. I stare at the artwork unlettered for days on end. So when
wondering what these guys are going to actually say,
what they're actually going to say, or if I'm writing something, like when I did the pie ad, I wrote the dialogue for, I wrote the pie ad.
Right.
Yeah, I knew what they were going to say, but it's still something about seeing the words coming out of their mouths that like it's tangible, it's real now. They're actually saying,
I get that. So I want to kind of just move along because I do want to talk about, of course, the max damage backup, and I do want to also talk about some of the stuff you're working on not related to Savage Dragon, and I know we're kind of getting up there on time. So the max damage backup, the cover to this backup is inked by Larsen, right?
Yeah.
Did you get to keep that?
Yes, I did.
Nice.
Yes, it's in my collection.
That's really awesome.
Yeah. Erik did a hell of a job. I mean, just to have my art inked by Erik, being a big fanatic, and Love and Dragon, it was just cool to have him ink a piece of mine.
Right. Yeah. He's a legend.
Did you put in all the little details of what's his name? Weed, yeah, all the little details on Weed, or did Erik put in all the little details?
I did, and he changed some of them, and he kept some of them, but I had a crap ton of details, and I think I even put a little ladybug on a leaf.
Oh, really?
Cover, yeah. So, yeah, I
found the ladybug.
Yep.
Right under the logo.
Yeah. So that's cool. I know earlier you were talking about how you love stories with, like, some obscure characters, and so we have Gavin Higginbotham writing this. You're gonna, every character he can get to tie in with past issues, he's gonna put in there. So this seems like it'd be something up your alley. I mean, you get Jerry. Yeah, Bruce Love, like, of all people. Jerry Rivers, who appears again, who always cracks me up because, it's, of course, a play on Geraldo Rivera. It's just Jerry Rivers,
Well, he changed his name to Geraldo. Wasn't Geraldo's original name Jerry Rivers?
Was it?
Might be.
I didn't know that.
That could be a cool trivia.
I didn't know that.
I think it was. I think he changed his name to Geraldo Rivera.
So this is
or vice versa. I could see Jerry Rivers being a stage name.
So this was based on a script by a story by Gavin, right?
Yeah.
Did he how does he do his scripting?
Marvel method as well. So basically it was a paragraph for each page, and it and the way it breaks down is like each sentence is a panel. So depending on the size of the paragraph, it could be a 5-sentence paragraph or a 6-sentence paragraph or 3-sentence paragraph or a 1-sentence, like for the splash page we're reading Major Disaster, who I had no clue who Major Disaster was.
Right.
From Freak
he
Force,
was the
right?
hardest one for me to draw in that whole thing
and he looks a little different than how he's drawn in Freak Force, but I really like it because I like the way you've drawn his face and stuff. I liked your take on the character.
Oh, thanks. And he only showed up. Gavin sent me a couple scanned pages.
Yeah.
And they were really dark. And there were only a couple panels that I guess he showed up in one issue of Freak Force.
Yeah.
So it really didn't give me a lot to go from. So it's like
it's a big muscle guy with an M.
Yeah. It's like, okay. It looks like he's got a flaming head and all of that. So
yeah, he's talking.
He's talking about Major Disaster.
Jim,
why do I?
Yeah, not Max.
Why do I keep mixing them up?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I can understand how that guy would be obscure. Yeah, I can't imagine he's shown up more than 3 or 4 times.
And your take on Weed is really cool. I love that splash page because Erik's kind of done that same thing. It just has got that power. Like it looks like his arm's just exploding with vines. So his leg or his arm, you can just get that feeling like those vines are just kind of blown right out of his arm and just
he really reminds
wrangling everything.
He really reminds me of like Super Patriot at his most tentacly.
Yeah.
Oh, I could see that. Yeah.
And he's got that funny thing where he's got like the vines kind of make the little like underwear. So he's kind of like got underwear made out of the vines. It kind of looks like the Vanguard style underwear, but in every shot you see him, he's kind of his vine. Yeah,
literally.
His vines give him that. It's pretty hilarious. He's a great character. I'm glad he didn't die.
Yeah, well, and he was actually a lot of fun to draw. And if you can't tell, I tended to focus more on Weed because
you can tell it's great. It looks fun.
I was more familiar with him as a character than Major Disaster, and Erik ended up doing some edits. Originally Major Disaster's hand when he's punching max damage, it was orange and it was all highlighted, and he ended up at the 0 hour changing it to brown, and then so those colors on that one hand on what is it, page 3 4 page 4, Erik ended up changing the colors last minute because it's like, if this is going to be a swan song, we should get his power right, because
he's like an elemental, right?
He controls pollution and
I didn't fully understand what his power was. So and he thought it looked like he was extending his arm, not creating the arm out of pollution or the hand out of pollution.
Yeah, I can see that.
I could totally see it too. But
it could look like you were going like too crazy with foreshortening or something like that if you kept it all one color.
Yeah, and that was me not knowing the character as well, and I think he only showed up one time in Freak Force.
Probably, yeah, for like 2 panels or something.
Yeah. And he wasn't actually a character I don't think Erik designed, if I remember correctly. I think Gavin told me that.
It was probably like Vic Bridges or something designed him.
Yeah, so it was like, okay, well, if you notice, he tends to be in the background in a lot of the pages, just because it's like I wasn't fully comfortable drawn the cat. You know, I was like, okay.
Yeah,
You know?
it's a great strip though. It focuses on some obscure characters. Weed's a great villain. It gives him some more light, and it's kind of like they're a little team of kind of environmentally focused villains. They're fighting. They think they're fighting the good fight. You know, it's cool. I like the way it came out. Of course, Max Damage is a big oaf, and he's just a dumbass, and
Just fumbles through and calls for
yeah,
victory.
I love his design though. He's a cool design character. Reminds me of like the typical kind of like 80s like hero.
Yeah. Smile on his face, and oh wait, I saved the day. What do you mean?
Yeah.
How the hell did that happen? And I made it a point to tip the hat to Erik in this as well on page 3 when Weed snaps Bruce's neck. I for lack of a better word, I don't know if it's called aping, but I based it off of when Weed had killed the Chicago Bull.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Where I kind of played off of the pacing of what Erik had done with that, with the killing of Bruce.
I'll have to go back and check that. Do you remember what issue that was?
It was during Gang War.
Yeah, right. 20 something, 20.
But yeah, I don't remember the specifics, but now that you mention it, I can sort of recall.
Yeah, where he
grabs Chicago Bull, and then you hear the snap off panel, and then you got him laid out.
Yeah.
And then they had the guy saying, "Take him out back, chop him up for burgers" or something.
Exactly. Oh wait, hey Cookie, I've got an idea. So, yeah. I mean, cool. Gavin has got a great mind and concept for backups. I loved doing this with him.
Yeah. He's probably got like 40 backups written or something like that. Like, this is probably like his 20th one he pitched before. I know always talking to him, he's always got something like up his sleeve, something he's thinking about and doing, and forever since I've really talked to him on the internet and stuff like that, he's always been kind of thinking about some kind of backup story or something. I mean, the guy just breathes Savage Dragon. He's the named editor for a reason now, and it's like there's no one that really loves this.
He's got a hell of an original art collection as well.
Yeah, I know. Has he got any of your pieces?
No. But he did say that if anything ever happens to him, I get his Savage Dragon collection. So
he told us the same thing.
Go figure.
Yeah. No, he's got a ton of Erik stuff. He's got a ton of Frank Fosco art.
Yes, he does. He's got a boatload, and some of the stuff is just really. I mean, he's got like a couple full issues, I think, of Dragon.
Yep, he bought a few, and he's got a lot of Frank Fosco. I don't know about complete. He might have the whole Rockhouse Diner, except for 2 pieces or something.
I think so.
Yeah.
He's got Savage Dragon versus Superman, pretty much.
That was the first one he got his hands on, or he started getting his hands on.
I have.
It was like the only available Larsen drawn Savage Dragons he could buy at the time.
Yeah, I have one of those pages, and he always gives me a hard time about it. But it was the first Erik Larsen page I ever owned, and I bought it at the New York Comic Con when him and Chris Eliopoulos were sitting at the same table, so they both signed it and everything. So I'm like, it's kind of hard for me to give that up.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
But we'll see.
I got a couple Erik Larsen pieces, which and then I have his inks on that back cover, which I've tried not to drool on.
That's the best thing, because that's your work with a master inking over your work. Like, I'm sure you look at that and it's just like, wow, like that's something really neat.
It doesn't happen every day, which it's like, obviously he liked my stuff enough to ink the cover. So, I'm very appreciative for that.
I noticed you reused it for a panel.
Yes, I did. I always liked when in comics when the cover tied somehow into the story.
Yeah.
And I had originally put in I photostatted my pencils, and Ian Sherman, who did primarily the inks on this, I was gonna he actually, I think, inked it, and then I was like, well, it would save me less time coloring since I've already colored it once.
Right.
If I just throw it in there in that spot. So I did.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we should probably talk a little bit about your other work.
Yeah. I want to get that in. Case Files of Harlan, Falk. I know originally I think it was slated to come out in August.
Yeah.
And I think last we talked you said December now. Just for like our listeners, can you give us a little synopsis on what it is and how you're involved?
Yeah, I was working on Starship Troopers with writer Cy Defon from England, and he and I kind of hit it off working on Starship Troopers, and he had this idea for a book, and we ended up co-creating the Case Files of Harlan Falk, which is basically Harlan is a hostage negotiator, which he ends up finding himself in a situation that he's ill-equipped and unprepared for, because he ends up dealing with a child's invisible friends.
Oh, that's neat.
Who he's and they're rock, paper, and stone. Scissor, paper, and stone. Or rock, paper, scissor.
Right.
He calls them stone. It's a British thing, yes.
So the invisible friends have taken the kid hostage?
Yes, because
that's clever.
He's about ready to outgrow them and want their right to exist. So Harlan, who is he's the creme de la creme of hostage negotiators, he's called in to broker this deal. And this is his first case, which sets him on his path to be a supernatural negotiator, where he brokers deals between devils and angels and fairy tribes and trolls and these otherworldly things. But this is this 4-issue miniseries starts on his first case with this kid who's about ready to outgrow his invisible friends, and these invisible friends kill his parents, and Falk botches the deal.
Oh.
And the kid is killed. Well, when the kid's killed, the friends no longer exist. The invisible friends no longer exist. And it sends him in a downward spiral because he's never failed before. So he goes into this alcoholic, dark place, and he then starts to believe in these otherworldly things and starts brokering deals this way. Well, the main villain, Mr. Scissor, from out of the Invisible Friends, comes back to life because there was one survivor out of the family, and that was the kid's younger brother, who witnessed and saw him. And since he saw Scissor, he believes in Scissor.
Right.
So Scissor's come back and is wreaking havoc, and Harlan's called back onto the case. And we've got a wonderful cast of characters, and you go through different realms and different as he's brokering. You get to witness and broker deals with monsters that live in the closet. To where there was a scene where this girl has got monsters that live in her closet, and they've taken her mother's cat. Well, the mother thinks the daughter has done something to the cat, and Harlan brings a contract, and it's very very British-like, where he's prim and proper.
Mhm.
And the little girl's got to sign the contract. She's got to leave the door open so many degrees each night, and the monsters will leave her and her family alone. These are, these are certain. Basically, he's brokering a deal. If you do X, Y, and Z, they won't do this, that, and the other thing. So,
Yeah, they won't haunt you or scare you or tag along. Or
No,
something.
that sounds really.
That sounds wild.
That sounds
Yeah.
really cool.
And we end up meeting a character called Hellbilly, or William, who is the invisible friend to the brother, who is also the protector of the brother. And him and Harlan start out at odds. And by the end of it, since the brother is getting up there in age and isn't believing in William so much anymore, Harlan brokers a deal with William to be his protector, so that as long as Harlan draws breath, William will continue to exist.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a cool read, and Sai is a really good writer, and we've had a blast.
And you said it's 4 issues, but is it 4 issues or is it a trade or?
It's going to be a trade. It's going to be 4
Okay.
chapters. I ended up drawing the first 2 chapters. Alex Johns took over and drew the last 2 chapters.
Gotcha. And so, like, if someone hearing about this for the first time, how can they order this, or is it available to order yet, or is it still?
I would talk to your local comic shop, because I'm sure I know it's going through Diamond.
Okay.
Okay, so it's going to be in previews.
I'm not sure. Yeah, it'll be in previews. I'm not certain when it's going to be solicited. I know I just emailed them. There was a few editorial changes that had to be made on the last 2 chapters.
And it's out of Marcosia Comics is the publisher.
Yeah, Marcosia. So, yeah, it's near and dear to my heart, because I've worked on it for some time, and to me, these are characters that I co-created and I did the design work for, and they're like your babies, your children.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, that sounds really neat. Yeah, like you said, it's creator owned. It's your stuff. But yeah, we'll keep our eyes out for it. If I find out the order code or something, we'll post it on the podcast site or on the dragonfan.net. And I know we had posted some information previously when Adam brought it up, but I think there'd been some changes, or it's been postponed a little bit. So
yeah, there was some editorial for, like I said, the last 2 chapters had some things that needed changing. So now that that's taken care of, I know it's basically getting set for pre-press. So
Cool.
yeah.
And keep us in the loop, and if we'll help push it. So.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And then I guess lastly, I'm excited to talk to you about this Mob Files comic. You had kind of briefly explained to me over email. It's a project where you and Frank Fosco are involved. Frank Fosco from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the recent Vanguard serials, and Zeke and stuff like that, who's a fan favorite. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah. God, years ago, I created the concept or the idea of Mob Files, and it stems around this private detective who almost works as like our crypt keeper,
Mm-hmm.
From Tales of the Crypt.
Yeah. Yep.
Tobias Lindblade is his name, and he introduces each file.
Gotcha.
For each chapter or each issue, and he closes it. I guess it's also like the 3 witches from the Witching Hour.
Yep. No, I totally understand where you're coming from.
It's kind of where I got the idea from, because being a big Toth fan,
Mm-hmm.
Witching Hour was pretty big for me. And basically they're these mob stories done very Quentin Tarantino. Takes place in the 60s and 70s Chicago mob.
Gotcha.
And they're, you know, the stories are, some of them are out of order, but they all connect.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So really like kind of like a Tarantino, like different parts of the story, but they're all, you got a running kind of connection going on.
And I've written I'm writing it. Frank is, you know, I've talked to Frank via email numerous times and on the phone, and he's going to lay it out. I'm going to draw issues 1 and 3 out of his first 4 chapters, and he's going to do 2 and 4. And the first chapter is called The Rat. Second chapter is called Car Talk. Third is Forgiven, and the fourth is called The Gypsy. And it's like the setup for either an ongoing series or another trade.
Cool.
So yeah, and he's going to lay it out. I'm going to pencil my chapters. He's going to pencil and ink my chapters. He's going to pencil and ink his chapters, and then I'll color it all. That I figured
awesome.
That way we could streamline it. Frank works real quick with layouts. I can color fairly quick, you know, and, you know, with him doing the layouts, it helps, you know, doing the majority of the layouts. It gets rid of the guesswork for me, especially since I'm writing it and, you know, doing that part of it as well. It's just, I guess, a way for it to be a little bit more streamlined.
Gotcha. Yeah. You guys started anything on it, or is it still in the planning stages?
I've got the first 3. Well, I've got some of the pages of The Rat already penciled and inked, and Frank has just sent me, a couple weeks ago, some brilliantly laid out pages for the opening sequence with Tobias in his office opening the first case file.
Nice.
You know? So I can't wait to get started on those pages.
That sounds awesome. Do you have a publisher, or are you going to be shopping it around?
I've got a couple publishers that are interested in it, but what I really like to do is go through Image.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm going to, you know, get these pages done, you know, that Frank sent me, put them together with the 5 that I've got done already.
Right.
And color them up and put together a good proposal. And then I got Gavin on board to work as, you know, continuity cop like he does on Dragon, and even help script some of it, you know.
Cool.
Yeah. So
that sounds awesome. I wish you guys all the luck, and it would be awesome to see, you know, the Image eye on that.
Yeah,
I would love to see the Image on that. And, you know, I thought, since, you know, the 3 of us, and I'm even talking with Adam Pruitt about doing the lettering.
Yeah, I could see that.
You know, I thought, since we worked so well together, you know, on the Zeke stories and on the subsequent backups, that, you know, let's keep the band together, man.
Well, it's really cool too, and you look at, you know, Savage Dragon from the early issues to now, and the people the fans that have grown up reading it, and the fans that are also artists that have kind of gotten more than just the comic out of it. You know, you've built relationships with other pros, or, you know, you've gotten some of your stuff published, and in turn you've kind of gotten a relationship with Frank Fosco and Gavin and Adam, and, you know, it's a little community that we have, and it's kind of cool that it helps you guys get other places too with your own work.
Yeah, well, and it just gives you a greater pool of people, like-minded people, that, you know, especially as a creator and as an artist. It's like, you know, I have always dug Frank's stuff. You know, what he what he does, and what got me thinking to even ask him to be a part of Mob Files was how he drew Zeke with the old time suspenders and shoes.
Yeah.
It was very noir, that kind of old school look. And I was like, okay, that's kind of what I'm looking for with Mob Files. And
yeah, I could totally see him doing a good job with that.
yeah, I can too. And just like I said, with the 3 pages that he did off of the description I gave, the layouts that he did, and the description I gave for Tobias, it's like a mixture between Rondo Hutton and John Tapper from Bar Rescue.
Yeah.
It would be like the love child of the two. That's the guy that the private detective.
And Frank's got that down, huh?
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. Frank is such a great talent. I've enjoyed everything he's put out. He seems like he's good at turning pages in and turning things around, like everything with all these serials and stuff. You never see like any kind of fill-in artist because he can't keep up deadlines. This whole run on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I mean, the guy just turns them out.
Oh yeah. Well, and who else? I mean, he's a Chicago boy.
Yeah, right.
It's Chicago mob stuff. And in talking, he was like, "Oh, I was doing a mob thing back when I was younger, and he would send me stuff that he had done back in the day." And I was, it was. I think he's a perfect fit to do this, and and I figure, 4 issues, 2 issues each, me coloring it. I've got a couple people interested in publishing it, but like I said, I'd prefer to see the image eye on it.
Yeah. No, I totally see that. That's it's kind of the seal of quality,
Well, yeah, the image seal of approval.
Yeah.
And I just think it's something different, So
yep, totally.
We'll see what happens.
Well, we'll be on the lookout for that.
Yep.
It sounds exciting. I'm real interested to see what comes out of that. But we're kind of winding down now with our time.
Yeah.
Definitely wanted to say thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's been great.
It's been an awesome conversation.
Well, thanks for having me. And I told you once you get some comic geeks together talking,
it's hard to stop.
It is.
And it's just great. My favorite part of these interviews is getting the little insight on these stories of, why you chose how to do this or that, or just finding out about things I didn't realize on, reading it and going back now after having this conversation and reading these again, you just get more out of it. So it was really fun, and thanks a lot for your time. I really appreciate it.
Hey, not a problem. Thank you guys for having me.
The Savage FINcast is hosted by the Gutter Trash Podcast Network, which can be found at guttertrash.net. The Savage FINcast is proud to be members of the Comic Addiction family of podcasts and the Comics Podcast Network, which can be found at comicaddiction.net and comicspodcast.com.